Okay, I'm Sarah Basabram. I'm a member of OneShul, and I'm teaching a Torah portion, Parshat Ekev. First, let's start off with the blessing for the teaching of Parsha. Baruch atah Hashem, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedeshanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu la'asot b'dvaro Torah. This Parsha is Parsha Ekev. V'haya Ekev Tishmun Eis Hamishpatem Ha'ela Ushartem Laisem Osam Ushmar Hashem Elohecha Lecha Eis Habris Ve'eis HaChesed Asher Nisba La'avosecha. And it will happen if you heed these ordinances, and you will keep them and do them, then Hashem, your Lord, will keep the covenant and the kindness which he has sworn to your ancestors. Now, Ekev, the title of this parsha, is not the usual Hebrew word for if or because. And there are several midrash hi Mikey, there are several midrash which play off of the meaning of the word Ekev, meaning heel. Rashi suggests that this verse has to do with those mitzvot which are usually trampled under the heel. That is, the ones that are usually ignored as insignificant. Another midrash suggests that when all of Israel observed the mitzvahs, then Hashem will trample the enemies of Israel underfoot. Two midrashim, sorry. A short summary of the Parsha. Oh, notes, sorry about that. Patrick should have posted the notes in the classroom. Let me see. Patrick, are the notes posted in the classroom? The notes can be found in the library. Yes, the notes there. The notes are posted in the classroom, and the notes can be found in the library. Sorry about that. I'm having problems with copy and paste. I don't normally have problems with copy and paste, but tonight I'm having problems with copy and paste. Go figure. So, a brief summary of the Parsha. Moses continues his exhortation. Moses continues his exhortation of the people to observe the commandments that the Lord has given. Now, Devarim is also called the Mishnah Torah, the repetition of the Torah. So everything that has previously gone on in the Torah is repeated in Devarim. And in this portion of Devarim, the land of Israel is described, it's described as a land of milk and honey. The 7 species are given, and I believe they are wheat, barley, grapes, figs, pomegranates, um, olives, and honey. But it is not honey as we normally think of honey. It's only the honey that comes from dates. So I guess dates would be part of the 7 species. And then Moses recounts the many times that Israel has displeased Hashem, the most notable being the debacle of the golden calf, and warns them about the dangers of overconfidence, and then goes on to make a prediction about what will happen in the times to come. Now, and then goes on, then the second paragraph of the V'ahavta is given. Now notice that there is a difference between this version of the V'ahavta that's given and the version that was given in Veschanan. In the version that was given in Veschanan, we're simply told to do. In this version of the V'ahavta that's given, we're not only told to do, we are given consequences that would happen if we do. For instance, we're told, not only are we told to love the Lord your God and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, we're told that if we do this, we will be given rain for our land. I will give you rain for your land at the right season, the autumn rains and the spring rains, that you may gather in your grain, your wine, and your oil. And that if we don't do this, that the Lord's anger will blaze up against us, and we shall perish from the good land that we are given. So there's a bit of a difference between being told just to do these and consequences that are given in case we don't. So this has been added on to the Shema. So what I'm going to talk about in today's lesson is tefillah. Now, tefillah, first of all, before I get into that, I want to talk a little bit about consequences. Has anyone, and the reason I want to talk about consequences is in this Parsha, Israel has this habit of forgetting that there are consequences to their actions. They'll forget that, yes, we promised this at Sinai. Yes, we promised that Hashem shall be our God, and they worship a golden calf instead. And then they find out there are consequences to this. And they say, yes, we will follow Hashem. And when they get to the promised land, they balk. And they spend 40 years wandering in the wilderness. And time and time again, they forget that they are Hashem's people. Time and time again, they forget that they have promised to hear, to do, and they keep getting hit over their heads with the fact that there are consequences to breaking this promise. Can anyone think of a time in their life when they have broken a promise, broken or done an action, and they keep getting hit in the head over and over again with the fact that there are consequences to an action? It doesn't have to be something personal. It can be something that happened nationally or globally. Anybody? I've got something pretty specific in mind. What about the BP oil spill? That had global consequences. It wasn't supposed to happen. They said time and time again that couldn't happen. It happened, and there were consequences. Mikey. Yes. And they kept saying, oh, we've cleaned it up. And there's still consequences. And so just like Israel wandering in the desert for 40 years, we still keep finding out that there are consequences to our actions. We find out that there are consequences to our words. We find out that there are consequences to our promises. So Ekev for me was a Parsha of consequences. So that was one of the things that really impressed me about Ekev. Now, my talk tonight, aside from being about consequences, is going to be on Tefillah. Lahitpael is the Hebrew root for prayer, for Tefillah, and it means to judge oneself. The Yiddish word for prayer is daven, and it comes from the French davenier, and the Latin root for that is Deus, which is the word for God, and that means to stand before God. So we've got on one hand to judge oneself, we've got on the other hand to daven, which means to stand before Hashem. So given that we've got those two perspectives, what does that say about Jewish perspective on prayer? You've got on one hand this introspection, on the other hand you've got a standing before Hashem. Yes. Yeah. Well, when Moses was praying to get into heaven, not to get into heaven. When Moses was praying to get into the land of Israel, when Moses was praying to get into the land of Israel, it was said that he prayed 515 times. Of course, this was back in that's Kana, and so the reason they said it, he prayed 515 times was that was the gematria of Veskana. But there's midrash that goes along with that. It says that when Moses was praying, he prayed so hard that his prayers battered the very walls of heaven. And the angels went to Hashem and said, "You've got to do something. Moses' prayers are going to shake down the foundations of heaven, and heaven is going to fall to earth." So Hashem had to go to Moses and say, "Enough, you have to stop praying." And yes, prayer is extremely powerful. So Hashem went to Moses and said, "Enough, you are not going to get into Israel, Rablach." That's it. That's written in Torah, Rablach, and there are several midrashim about enough, but I won't go into that. But Rashi said that there are 10 words for prayer: cry, howl, groan, song, encounter, stricture, prostration, judgment, beseeching, and prayer. That's a lot of words for prayer. That's an awful lot of words for prayer. Can anyone think of how many different ways do we utilize those different words, those different types of prayers in our own lives, in our own praying? Do we use songs? Do we use beseechings? Evidently, I'm not doing something right. Nobody's. Anyway, since we're talking about Jewish prayer, I'm going to start off with a question that's going to seem it might seem like a stupid question. Let's see. No, it's not on there. Well, there's a further amendment to that by the Midrash. There's a Midrash Rabbah which says that there's 18 types of prayer, and I think that thank you is on the 18 types of prayer. I just didn't put that one on here. But you're right, that should be on there. But I have a question for you. And this is probably going to seem like a very silly question to be asking a bunch of Jews. Is prayer a mitzvah? And I'm not talking about mitzvahs and a good deed. I'm talking about is prayer an obligation? Okay, why? Somebody tell me why you're saying yes, and somebody tell why you're saying no. Okay, Miriam, I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, Z, why are you saying no? Okay. All right, let me say, okay, y'all are sort of on the right track, but when I'm asking is prayer mitzvah, I'm saying, is prayer something that is a biblical commandment, or is prayer something that is even more fundamental? And there were two answers to this. Maimonides said that prayer was a biblical commandment. And then the rabbis said that some of the others, Rambam, Rashi, said that no, prayer was too fundamental to be a biblical commandment. Well, the reason that Rambam said it was a biblical commandment was he said that we were commanded to talk with our hearts to God, and that talking with our hearts was prayer. So Maimonides says that when we were commanded to talk with our hearts, that was defined as prayer. So it was a biblical commandment. But Maimonides and a majority of the other rabbis said it was too fundamental to be a biblical commandment. So it was set up as a rabbinical obligation. So you've got it, on one hand, it being a biblical obligation from Maimonides, and the other hand, you've got it being a rabbinical obligation. But either way, so it's a mitzvah, but it's just a question of, is it 100, is the obligation to pray, is it 101 of the 613 mitzvahs? So you've got a difference among the rabbis there. As far as the mitzvah to prayer being an obligation for women, actually, yes, it is. Um, well, I've heard it says, I looked that up today, and I found what I found to be a very convincing argument that it is. Yes, it's a time-bound obligation, but in the Talmud Brachot, you've got one, if you say that it's a biblical obligation, then we're just commanded to pray. And it's not a time-bound obligation, in which case it is, if it's not a time-bound obligation, a positive time-bound obligation, it's binding on everybody. Then, if it's a rabbinical obligation, then the Talmud Brachot, you've got in the Talmud Brakot, you've got prayer defined as asking for a time when you ask for God's mercy. So isn't everybody obligated? Couldn't everybody use God's mercy? If everybody could use God's mercy, then it's equally binding upon women and men. So you've got then you've got it binding upon women and men. So even among the Orthodox, they would say that prayer is binding upon women and men. So if you've got prayer as a mitzvah, then it's a little bit different from how people ordinarily think of as just prayer. So how else does Jewish prayer differ from what people normally think of as prayer? Our prayer is formal and communal. Our prayer has set words and a set order. For example, we have Shachris, Mincha, and Mincha Marav. I wouldn't say that meant it's not that women are necessarily obligated to do the 3 a day, but that women are obligated to pray at least once a day. And what prayers women are obligated to do seems to be a matter of discussion. Chat time. I like that. Do you remember the old Saturday Night Live coffee talk? Is anyone here old enough to remember that? Sounds sort of like coffee talk with God, meaning no disrespect. I am very old, Mikey. I'm as old as dirt. Miriam, yes, I remember that, Patrick. Miriam, from what yes, in my research, I've come across it's in the Orthodox circles. It said that women are obligated to tefillah, but the times are optional. Specifically, that they're obligated to tefillah for chakris and mincha, and marav is optional. Sure. Yes, it is one that we're time bound to. It's considered tefillah because it's its own thing. I'd say it's considered a time bound mitzvah, but not in the way that tefillah is. It's time bound like eating matzah is time bound. And it's not so strict. It can be more worked around if you're having to work it around, say, kids. It can be more worked around kids than and family obligations than, say, going to shul for chakras. Does that make any sense? I don't know if it does or not. That's just my opinion. Yeah, the tefillah is particularly the Shemona Esrei. I'm gonna, yep, I'm coming to that. One thing I find funny about the Amida is it's sometimes called the silent prayer, but it's not actually silent, it's whispered. There is no such thing as silent prayer in Judaism unless you're specifically doing meditation and somebody says, now we're doing silent meditation. Have you ever been in shul and it's been totally silent? Only if nobody's there. Not in a crowded shul. Well, that's true. I'm sorry, I forgot about reform. I haven't been in a reform shul in a long time. Why is it whispered? Because we're told, ah, sorry, my monitor just went black. We're told to, I think it's because we're told to, when we're told to pray, we're told to speak. So even when we're doing the silent prayer, we're still supposed to speak, though we do it very quietly. Yeah, I agree, Rebecca. It is calming. But I don't know, that's a good question, James. Um, there are 19 parts. There are 19 parts to the Amida. There were 18. There was one added at the end of it. And there's one, and there, oh, one thing I wanted to write in my lap. Another thing I wanted to mention about specifically Jewish prayer is it involves the use of a siddur, a formal prayer book, which has the prayers in it. Big surprise. My siddur is extremely large because it's a large print siddur. But most different movements have their own siddur. We have one here, Ahava Rabbah, which you can purchase online or download from the website. It's Hasiddur HaShalem. This one was by Philip Birnbaum. It's the Orthodox Siddur. I got it from Jewish Braille Institute. But I've got glaucoma, so, but it's, most Siddurs will contain at least some Hebrew. It may be it will be translated, it may be transliterated, but there will be some Hebrew in it. They may be mostly in vernacular, which is fine, no problem with that. But the prayers will all be the same. Well, not all the prayers won't all be the same, but the same prayers can be found in most Siddurim. They may be parts of them omitted, parts moved around, but there are some prayers which will be in all Siddurim. The Shema will be there, the Amida will be there. There are basic prayers which you'll find in Reform Siddur, Orthodox Siddur, Conservative Siddur, Reconstructionist Siddur. You'll find a Siddur where you can go to India and get a Siddur, and there'll be the Shema, there'll be the Amida. Doesn't matter. A Siddur is going to be a Siddur. It may be in Ladino, it may be in Yiddish, it may be in Hindi, but they're going to be there. Yes, they are fun to compare and contrast. I like reading commentaries in Siddurim. But I think there are definite advantages to using a formal prayer book. You can say a prayer, and each time you say that prayer, the words are different in a way that you may not expect. And after you say a prayer over and over again, the prayer becomes a part of you. There's exactly. Using a prayer book is it's like learning a language. It may be unfamiliar at first, but practice it often enough, live with it, and it gets easier. And the more you live with it, the easier it gets. And after a while, you get to where you can speak the language. Cool. They use the OneShul sitter. This is just a tangent, but ArtScroll has recently come out with a Ohel Sarah, a woman sitter, and well, not recently, but in the last couple of years, and Jaffa, the Jewish Orthodox Feminist Alliance, is up in arms about it because they say, you know, why have a separate sitter just for women? Isn't that just sort of muddying the water? Women are already, why do we need a separate sitter? So they recommended the Koren Sachs sitter, but I thought that was interesting. I've seen numerous blogs railing against ArtScroll, against their women's sitter. So I thought that the whole controversy, I haven't looked at it, so I don't know what it's like. I don't know what makes it different than their men sitter, but I just, until I saw that whole controversy, I was going to buy one, and um, I've since found one I think I would like better than ArtScroll anyway. It doesn't have anything to do with the male-female controversy. It's just a sitter that I think I would like. But I just sort of shook my head at the whole Michigas. So it's funny what you can find online when you're not looking for it. But when I was, one of the things that I found was interesting was when I was looking up the Tefillah, looking up a minion. There's, of course, you've got to have 10 people for a minion. The Orthodox, you've got to have 10 men for a minion. The Reform, you've got to have 10 adults for a minion. If you're conservative, I think it depends on the practice of your congregation. I don't know. Oh, but I was trying to find out why 10 people. and I found a reference to Psalm 82, which God stands in the Hashem stands in the congregation of Hashem. I couldn't find out what that has to do with 10. Patrick, do you know? I don't know if Patrick's in the room or not. Well, anyway, I did find out that it might have to do with 10 spies that were sent into Israel. The fact that 10 was an auspicious number in ancient Judaism. But anyhow, 10 people is the quorum for a minyan. But as to why the Hashem stands in the congregation of Hashem, I don't know, but that's the quote I kept finding for why 10 people. So I don't know. When they have services at OneShul, they have to have when they have Kabbalat Shabbat services, do they have to have a minyan? I have not been to one, so I don't know. Anyone who's been to one, do they? Anyone? Ah, okay. Well, that's cool. That's cool. All right. I'm just curious. What was the wow? Since 2010? That's impressive. I didn't know y'all been around that long. Mazel tov. Hmm. No, that is impressive. Well, I'm very happy to be a part of it now. Finally, just as a last question, yeah, I've been to some that couldn't even make a minyan on Friday night. A brick and mortar shul that couldn't make a minyan on a Friday night. So that is awesome. I'm just curious, what was the first Hebrew prayer that anyone ever learned, that everyone ever learned? Or if you don't know one, would like to learn? Shema? Okay. I figured it would probably be the Shema. Shema was the first one. The Shema was the first one I learned, then the Hamotzi. But I was thinking, there's a bracha for everything. Got a bracha for putting on new clothes. There's a bracha for everything, from putting on new clothes to seeing a rainbow. Yeah, there is one for a sewing machine. I think there's isn't there an all-purpose bracha, Patrick? I know the blessing for the sewing machine. I'd give the blessing to the sewing machine the same one I'd give the blessing for the czar. May God bless and keep the sewing machine far away from me. Finally, I want to talk, or I want to get everyone's input on communal praying versus individual praying. This is something that's personal to me because I'm in a very small town, and basically I feel like I'm the only Jew in town. Okay, bye Zev. And I don't have the opportunity to go to shul in real time, which is why I'm very grateful there's OneShul. And so it is extremely, like, I cannot get up every day and go to chakra services if I wanted to. I can't go to Shabbat services in person. And I mean, I'm going to be lucky if I can find a shul that's within distance to go to Rosh, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur services. So my Baba used to tell me, "Schwertzit sein an Yid." I'm in Abingdon, Virginia, which is a very small town in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. The nearest shul is Asheville, which is, oh geez, about, I'm not good with distances, but it's further away than I can get. Um, or Knoxville. So, and I don't drive, so there's another problem. Um, so I'm looking, in case anybody knows of a nice town that has that's not too expensive to live in, let me know. I'm looking for a new place to live. Um, but anyway, can you be a Jew by yourself? Can you, I mean, I agree. Possible, but very, very hard. I think that's one of the things that Patrick was trying to address when he set up OneShul. There's, it is, it's hard to, there, I was looking through the Siddur, and there are prayers that you don't read unless you have a minyan. We really are different from other faiths in that, Geoking. Ours is a more, traditionally, ours is a more communally based, George, thank you. Ours is a more traditionally a more communally based faith than, say, Christianity or Buddhism or some of the others. Um, we're not, we're set up, there's a midrash I saw which says there was a town and the Jewish community said, we're going to place a barrel in the middle of our community, and everybody in the community will donate 1 cup of wine so that for Shabbos we will have a full barrel of wine. And so the people, each person thought, well, I'll just put in a cup of water, and it won't matter if I just put in a cup of water because everybody else is going to put in wine. And so each person came up and they put in 1 cup of water. And you know what they had on Shabbos? They had a very nice barrel of water. And that story was used by the rabbis to illustrate why we are communally based people instead of an individually based people. Whether you agree with that or not is up to you. I tend to see merits in both approaches, but let me tell you from personal experience, it is very hard to be on your own and trying to be Jewish. Don't even get me started on trying to keep kosher when there's no kosher food available. Like, very hard to do. But anyway, thank y'all for coming to class. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for the link, Patrick. Thank you for letting me teach. I enjoyed it. I look forward to doing it again. I'd be glad to do it again next week if you wouldn't mind. Thanks. I will. Good night. I'll be here after class.